Good morning and welcome to your Farm and Home Show. My name is Joanna Coles, and this morning we're visiting with Dr. Amanda Gumbert. She's with the University of Kentucky, a water quality extension specialist there. Good morning, Amanda.
Good morning, Joanna. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I love having you on because it's a great reminder for me as well to think about conservation because I know that you don't just teach it. You live thinking about how to conserve our resources that we have. And today we're going to focus a little bit on conserving those resources and trying to put that in the forefront of production and practices.
Right. And I appreciate you saying that. I'm one of those strange people that drive around and I'm always looking for ways that we can be a little nicer to the earth or we can be a little more efficient, whether that be around the house or on the farm, so that we are protecting our soil resources as well as our water resources. And so I like to think of it in terms of, how do those two, soil and water, how do they work together for us to produce the food that we need? But also, our natural resources provide what we call ecosystem services. And that's just kind of a fancy way to say that our soil, our water, and our air really take care of us as human beings.
I know one of the things that you encourage is to always consider conservation as maybe part of a daily production practices with every decision we make.
Absolutely. And farmers are faced with tons of decisions that they have to make every single day, and they're not always easy decisions. But the decisions that we're talking about today are in terms of like resource stewardship. So looking around the farm, and every farmer knows that their soil resources, their water resources, as well as their equipment and their financial resources, their people resources, those are essential to making their production happen and to making it sustainable. And when we start to consider practices like maybe using a cover crop to help preserve soil resources and conserve those and prevent erosion once our cash crop has been harvested, can we come back in and put cover crops in? How is that going to help the soil? Is it going to hold soil in place? Is it also maybe going to provide some root structure, maybe some carbon back in the soil? But thinking about it, we still have to buy the seed for that cover crop. So how do we finance that? So that goes into the conservation of that financial resource. And so thinking about things like using cost share programs, or if you're farming a lot of acres, then maybe that's also speaking to your lender about how do I finance these conservation practices that I'm going to include in my production that's going to make me more sustainable over the long term and probably really turn into profit, not that it's going to be an upfront cost and that's the end of the story.
And I think the university has done quite a bit of work to be able to show some of the economics behind that. Even though it might not happen within that first year, it's a long-term investment.
Right. We don't necessarily buy a new piece of equipment and expect it to pay for itself in the first year or two. We kind of know how long to expect the life of that piece of equipment. And so if we think about conservation practices in that same way, our topsoil takes a really long time to form. And if we lose our topsoil, then, we're losing a lot of production. So we kind of have to change how we think about conservation practices. What about how, taking a soil test and using that soil test really deliberately to determine what nutrients we need to add, for that crop. So that's going to save us money on the short term, but also in the long term, it's going to help us to not lose any excess nutrients to runoff. And then that's going to protect our water resources as well. So it's kind of thinking in a bigger, broader sense of what can we do every day on the farm to make good, sound decisions for this year's bottom line, but what about in the next 2 or 3 or 5 years and our long-term sustainability of the production and the productivity of our soils?
And I think that's very important, especially in South Central Kentucky, where a lot of our farmland is going into development. So, we're going to have to produce more on a smaller amount of acreage, and we have to take care of the resources that are there and available at that time. So,
Absolutely.
Amanda, certainly appreciate you coming today and giving us this reminder of conservation and how we need to have it in our everyday decision making practices. So, appreciate the information. And if you have questions, make sure to contact your local local extension office and would be happy to help. Thanks for watching and have a great day.